What's little secret that you know only because you work in that industry? The person you strapped yourself to for a tandem skydive was up until 3 a.m. doing cocaine last night. I had strong suspicions on the plane when the guy said, "See that tent down there? That one's mine." The scariest part of skydiving was the idea that I was trusting my life to a guy who makes minimum wage and lived in a tent. Sometimes when a job is posted and the requirements are unrealistic, that's because they already have someone that needs to be promoted to that specific position, and they simply tailor that job ad so only that person qualifies even if hundreds of people apply. I saw somebody lose out on a promotion because she failed to apply for it after her manager reminded her multiple times. Another candidate applied immediately and was too good to pass up. This girl had to train her supervisor for the role she was handpicked for but kept forgetting to apply. She was bitter for the rest of her time at the company. Carpenter here. After 8 years of framing houses, 3 as a foreman, and now 3 years of trim carpentry, Ivy realized that the vast majority of houses aren't built to code, or are just slapped together with the cheapest products. Most inspectors aren't willing to crawl around in the roofs, and won't look in the subfloor, and plenty of contractors know this. They will take shortcuts, splice things together, or will block off and hide shitty work. If you have an island in your kitchen that has been framed, there is a phenomenal chance that you have some pizza crusts, Modelo bottles, or a piss bottle hidden inside. Drywallers seem to hate walking their trash to the dumpster. 100-year-old houses are a thing of the past. Home inspector here in the Pacific NW. This is 100% true, and I do not care what you read about this award-winning builder. They cut every corner possible. Today's soup of the day was yesterday's soup of the day, now with rice. The joys of working in food service. Gently Pat's microwave. The best time to buy a car is the second model year of its release. Year 1, it's patchwork to just get them off the line. Year 2, everything is fixed and has quality content. Year 3 plus OEMs give incentives to make parts cheaper and to decontent to improve margins. That explains a lot about my wife's car. She has a 2019 VW Atlas, second year, and we don't have most of the problems other people are posting about all the time with their newer models. Teachers do in fact have favorite students. This is completely understandable. The hard-working C student, or the well-behaved A student, is always going to be seen more favorably than the lazy or disrespectful kid. The trick is to mask your favoritism. Bartenders find a discreet spot to Google the recipe for that rare drink you just ordered, LOL. Discreet? Who has time for that? I hop on my phone out in the open if I don't know the recipe off the top of my head. Time is money. Utility construction, primarily fiber. The majority of the subcontractors have no idea what they're actually doing and are just following the instructions like it's IKEA furniture. To be fair, following the instructions correctly is a skill. Political propaganda TV hosts and speakers don't believe that shit themselves and are very cynical about it, like it's just a job like any other. It's worth remembering that they may not believe in the content, but they do believe in profiting from the damage it causes. A person is measured by their actions, not their words. As far as I can tell, military grade means painted green. Military grade means it meets the specifications with the cheapest price. Minimum specification for the cheapest price. Your call isn't really important to us. Video game development is a chaotic mess. It's a miracle that any game comes out at all, let alone with any amount of polish. Also, audiences like to blame QA for bugs, but that's extremely misguided. I guarantee that QA knows about every bug in detail, including tons most players have never even encountered. The real folks to blame are management who choose not to put resources towards fixing these bugs. Your second point is correct for QA in general. We find the craziest shit, but either upper management overrule or spineless project managers don't push back on insane deadlines. 2 questions are usually asked about QA by the bean counters. When things work, it's, "Everything is fine, why do we need these people?" When things go bad, it's, "These people just slow down getting products out, why do we need these people?" The difference between a professional cook and a professional chef is that cooks do weed and chefs do cocaine. Unless they are old, then they drink. The reading level of most teenagers is far, far worse than most of the country, US, realizes. Teacher. And it doesn't get magically better after they graduate high school. College professor. The signal strength bars on your phone don't mean anything real. Each phone manufacturer comes up with their own secret formula. It might change between software versions, and it's just a holdover from the old first-generation analog phones when received signal strength was the only important metric. 4G and 5G networks are way too complex to distill into one bar graph, but customers are used to it, so phones still have it. Things that you buy that come in eco-friendly packaging are first removed from their regular plastic packaging and then put back into the new packaging. It's actually a double waste. The places they get their inventory from overseas are not using eco-friendly packaging. Go to a container shipyard. Everything is shipped to minimize costs. I work in visual effects for TV and film. Most people that assumes big explosions and such, which it is, but a lot of it is cosmetic fixes and de-aging for the stars. The massive, professional quality cinema projectors that movie theaters use. The ones that can project crystal clear 4K plus images. The ones linked to top-notch surround systems that make movies come to life. The ones so big they have a giant exhaust hose. They have regular HDMI ports on the side. The staff has totally ripped each other apart in Mortal Kombat, or explored a fantasy world in Breath of the Wild, or blown away enemies in Call of Duty on the big screen when everyone has left for the night, or brought in some 4K discs and screened movies that haven't been in theaters in decades in near cinema quality, or loaded up a streaming app and watched a streaming exclusive movie in theaters. When movies were still on film, my cousin was friends with a kid who worked at a theater. One of his jobs was the night or two before a premiere. He'd have to screen the film to make sure there was no bad spots on the film. Him and his friends got to see many movies before most people, for free. Your professors hate grading your papers almost if not more than you hate writing them. Many therapists need therapy themselves, sometimes a lot of it. This isn't really a secret. Any counseling program worth its salt makes a point of emphasizing the need for therapists to have their own counseling support so that A. They are self-aware of their own issues and how that might impact their clients. B. They understand what it's like to go through the therapy process, and C. They avoid burnout from hearing and helping process other people's issues. Source: I'm currently in grad school for counseling. Anyone giving stock advice is basically reading a horoscope. If they had the ability to pick superior investments, they'd do it themselves and not talk about it. I used to work in finance on the brokerage desk. Constantly had friends, family asking what stocks to buy to get rich. My answer was always, if I had the knowledge, why would I be sitting here talking to you? I'd be on my own private island somewhere having beautiful women bring me rum and cokes on the beach made of diamonds and rubies. I drive in 02 Accord. You think I know how to make you rich? Then I would tell them that actually, I do know how to get roughly $1 million. Put a few $100s into an index fund every month for 40 years. You should, depending on how much you invested each month, have between 1 and 2 million after the 40 years. This one will be obvious to most people, but it wasn't to me at the time. Not all doctors are good at their jobs. I used to assume that doctors were held to such a high standard that they were all fairly competent. This isn't true. I would recommend asking someone in the field who they would recommend for their own family before picking a surgeon. I am a landscaper. I will make your yard beautiful, but it will need constant maintenance. Neighbor of mine just scalped their lawn and poured white stone over it. It looked beautiful, absolutely gorgeous with the potted flowers and all that interspaced throughout. I asked him what kind of liner or landscaping fabric he used under the stones. Oh, none. The grass can't grow without sunlight. Kuka. I don't need to tell you what it looked like 2 months later without a lick of maintenance. Let me guess. The grass couldn't grow without sunlight, but the weeds worked without pay for a taste of the promised land? The lumber industry is actually pretty crazy. The federal government will raise tariffs on Canadian lumber if the price starts to beat American lumber. If this happens, lumber mills will sometimes shut down for extended periods of time, essentially causing a lumber shortage. Because of supply and demand, this artificially inflates the price of US lumber. This is a never-ending cycle. All of this causes incremental increases in the price of goods. Any goods that arrive on whitewood pallets, as well as building materials, start to increase in price because companies pass along this higher cost to the consumer, as with everything else that impacts goods. Everything that is transported or built with lumber, you pay for the inflated costs on a daily basis. But it's probably the last thing you think about when going to the store. TV commercials really are louder than the programs. Maybe an open secret by now, but all those real estate reality shows where couples are looking for houses, they're already in contract with the one they want before they start filming. The production crew works with a local realtor to find 2 jabroni houses to take the fall. That realtor will be in the show credits. They're already in contract with the one they want before they start filming. Our house was in one of those shows. We knew from the get-go that our place would not be chosen. Everything was scripted. We did chuckle at the couple's reasoning for picking the home they chose. They said it was closer to the beach. It was not. We were. The crew was really nice though. A lot of the TV news you watch isn't really news, just a press release from a business, an organization, or a government turned into a news story. Used to work for a news clipping transcription agency. We'd have organizations or companies or governments calling us, say they sent some press release to the newspapers, radio, and TV and wanted every news item that mentioned it. One local tech college changed its name after they repeatedly sent out press releases and had press scrums, and nothing they announced ever made it on the news because no one cared. Used to get angry phone calls from them saying we weren't doing our jobs, and we would check again and tell them no one talked about them. Printer ink for home use printers is disgracefully expensive. Printer ink for commercial printers is cheap. Printer software for home use printers is rubbish, just reskinned from the 2000s. Printer software for commercial printers are fantastic, unless you're with Mimaki. Almost every company that gets an award basically paid to get it. Look closely at industry awards and you'll see award lists where each of the winners either sponsored one of the other categories, or is a major client of one of the sponsors. Healthcare equipment costs are massively inflated in the US. For example, the batteries that go into the little blood pressure electric carts will cost hundreds to replace. But they are virtually identical to the game feeder batteries you can buy at sporting goods shops for maybe $20. And those costs are lower in other countries. The manufacturers know they can inflate costs in the US far more than anywhere else. It is cheaper to buy a replacement X-ray tube overseas, import it legally, pay all the associated fees and shipping costs than to buy one here in the US. Same tube, same specifications. If your kid receives an even 60% in class, they really failed, but no one wanted to do the paperwork. Or you are such a nightmare of a parent that dealing with you trying to get me fired because your child failed isn't worth it. My friend's sister-in-law was a teacher in that situation. She refused to pass the student, who had rich parents, and ultimately quit rather than pass him, as she realized she was getting fired, as the parents were threatening to stop donating money to the school if the kid failed. The kid was apparently not even close to understanding the material and absolutely should not pass. She completely left teaching and does something else now. I work at a milk processing plant. All milk is the same regardless of the brand. It comes out of the same tank, we just change the labels. Those sugar donuts at every Chinese buffet you go to are fried Pillsbury biscuits rolled in granulated sugar. And the yum yum sauce at hibachi restaurants is just mayonnaise, ketchup, sugar, paprika, and enough water to thin it out. If there is 2g of gold in a ton of earth, it's profitable to make a mine there. They prefer around 4g for it to be really worth it. Silver is 6g per ton. Copper and nickel is 8g, which is why they have dump trucks that have a load capacity of 250 tons, and they run them around the clock. Diamond mines treat their workers the best. Stunning accommodation, Wi-Fi and TV, free food, free drinks and cigarettes, easy shifts, lots of time off, and huge wages because you can't detect diamonds leaving the mine and on planes very well, so it pays to keep their staff so happy that they don't want to risk losing their job. Your packages get the shit beat out of them while they are being processed. Fragile? That means throw underhand. I work in IT. The amount of claims I do monthly with FedEx because they have shattered yet another monitor is ridiculous. Nurse-patient ratios are too high in most of the country. Lower nurse-patient ratios are associated with shorter length of stay, lower readmission rates, and lower mortality rates. Nurses who have less patients give better care, and their patients are literally less likely to die. But there are only a few states in the US that have legally mandated nurse-patient ratios. I think only California and Oregon. In other states, many nurses have too many patients. They have too many tasks to complete in too little time. And this is why nurses are burning out in droves and leaving the profession. Because they feel like they are drowning. They are performing complex, technical tasks under significant time pressure with a high degree of liability, and it is highly stressful. 17% of nurses quit within their first year. 56% quit within 5 years. Also, medical error kills somewhere between 250,000 to 400,000 people a year in the US. No one knows the exact number, as medical errors tend to be underreported. Because who wants to admit they may have killed a patient and throw away their lucrative career that they slaved away in school for many years to achieve? People are horrified when a single jumbo jet crashes and 500 lives are lost. And it is a big news story with lots of coverage when it happens. But the conservative estimate of 250,000 lives lost each year due to medical error is the equivalent of 500 jumbo jets crashing every single goddamn year. And no one talks about it. Not a peep. It is happening silently in hospitals all over the country, including the one in your town. This issue is highly underreported. Your housekeepers have to clean 10 to 13 rooms in 30 to 45 minutes a day, each. Strip the bed, remake the bed, clean all surfaces, bathroom vanity, toilet, tub, floors. In an easy room? No problem. A dirty room? Things get skipped. That floor got looked and picked over, not vacuumed. That trash got emptied, not changed. Those sheets are remade, not clean. Why? Because they don't have time. Are pushed by management, and are constantly pressured to get those rooms out. Guests are waiting. This, by the way, was my experience in 2021, during peak COVID. When financing a car at the dealership, this includes leasing, they can and will mark up the interest rate almost certainly. Unless you, the consumer, specifically ask them, "Is this the best rate I qualified for?" Then they technically don't have to give you the best rate. They can add as much as they feel they can get away with, then act like they're doing you a favor by discounting the rate. The Truth in Lending Act states that if asked, they must disclose, but only if asked. I work in product development. No one is bringing manufacturing back to US from China. If they're forced to leave, they're going to Vietnam, Taiwan, Thailand, Malaysia, Mexico, etc. Web analytics guy here. Just about every big company with a website uses the same two free Google Web programs, GA4 and GTM, to track your data, and the setup only takes about an hour. If you're starting a business and want the same marketing data quality as the high rollers, just use GA4 and GTM. My old professor teaches exercise science, once taught the military, did international research on muscles and was an ex-bodybuilding champ, worked at GNC. His spiel on the entire vitamin industry and more specifically the workout supplements is a whole sham. Why do you think these supplements aren't meeting FDA requirements? OTC testosterone boosters. Doesn't work. A majority of the supplements don't work. Physicians can support this. Unless you are deficient, your body won't be absorbing and storing extra vitamins and nutrients in your body. Excess gets excreted. Two things he does vouch for are protein use and creatine use. Strippers aren't really into you. Usually no, but I know I'm an exception. They tell me that. My uncle worked as an accountant for the construction of a few MGM casinos and resorts. Here's some of the things he says. 1. Don't use the slot machines, they are under a carefully constructed algorithm to keep you hooked. But ensure the house gets all the profit. 2. There are numerous cameras, but only a few individuals watching them. The people watching the cameras are expert card counters. 3. Casinos don't have vaults. All profit a casino makes is loaded into armored trucks every few hours, and is shipped to the bank. 4. When a casino opens its doors, it has zero cash inside. All profits are brought on by the people. 5. Only about 2% to 5% of customers will make a profit. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.